chapter 13, the concept and the color of God and Black mental health. Um, so I want to get you guys. Well, what are you guys' thoughts on chapter 13? My thoughts is that um, there has been a lot of emphasis on white people spreading Christianity to all parts of the world. They send members of their race on missions, and they call them missionaries to spread religion, to spread the word of the Bible. And this chapter gave me a insight into as to why so much energy is put towards religion. It's such a great way to like grab someone's mind at the same time and destroy their soul in the process. Um, so yeah, to me, it's about the religion as a weapon, basically.
Yeah, I see it as white people. They discovered that through religion they're gonna be able to dominate, but it's much easier for your oppressed people to remain oppressed and to remain in an inferior position if you can give them a god that does not look like them, and also a god that looks like the person abusing them. So in a way, they develop this really unhealthy relationship to the god where they still worship him, but they justify their suffering as it being necessary for their spiritual religious growth. If that makes it sense to anyone.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I noticed in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where it has the highest concentration of resources like cobalt, coltan that they use for cell phones and computers, and the plutonium and the uranium. The big thing now, there's big fighting now, is gold, is the gold. Uganda and Rwanda are in the Congo securing gold mines for their rebel groups. And the reason I'm involved in this conversation is because these, like the French, for example, whatever European support, they're behind the Congo's government. And then you have the Ugandans backing the rebels in the east, and then the Rwandans are backing the rebels in the south. And so, but they're not actually doing the fighting. What you see is massacres in these villages. You know, they want to control the area where the gold mine is, and it may be a tribe that's not aligned with you. So you go wipe out the whole tribe. You go wipe out the whole village. And in each of these villages that I saw in this particular documentary, I think it was a legitimate documentary, they had a white Jesus on the wall in the church. And before they went and massacred the village, they would have a prayer. And they convinced these tribalists that they're doing God's work by wiping out a neighboring tribe that looks just like them.
Mm.
That's the weaponization of Christianity right there. It's for the purpose of, it all gets back to raping, raping Mother Earth, the Black Mother Earth.
Ben, I think what you said was really important. Someone just chime in. The fact that you have like believing that by killing their own people, they are doing God's work, and they are. If you actually look at white supremacy and Christianity in the context of white supremacy, they are doing God's work because, like, Christianity is Black death. Christianity is the survival of the white race, and the more Black people who are killed, like the more godly, supposedly the world becomes. So yeah, I think that was really important. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing that. That was very eye-opening because Congo right now, the crisis is going through is on so many different levels. There was something that I came across 2 days ago. There's like a petition going around to actually sue Apple, Google, and a couple of other major corporations for their use of child labor in the Congo. And from the footage that I was seeing of in the Colbert mines for resources, so these children under various of unsanitary conditions are just like are being forced into like child labor, and it's their own people who are giving them the instructions and alongside with them, but basically sacrificing their children for the development of technology and these major corporations. And what you just what you just articulated, kind of, they're doing God's work. I see how that you can sacrifice. Well, I don't see, but I have some understanding as to their conditioning, as to how they can sacrifice their own children to the system.
Mm. So when you guys were growing up, did you guys have a image of God in your head? Did you have any? Did you develop any animosity towards God growing up?
I naturally had a disdain towards, well, seeing my concept of God was different. And that was where I think I experienced more of an identity crisis. I experienced a religious crisis because I grew up Black in the UK, first generation. And of course, I saw everything around me that was more socially acceptable was Christianity, but I grew up in a Muslim household. So, and I used to attend Arabic lessons, but within a Black community. So it wasn't the Islamic cultural impact that I would have if I had gone to an Arabian cultural center. It was very much West African, but definitely conditioning. And my mentality was to fear God. I asked so many questions, and my mother was like, "No, you don't ask these questions about God. God doesn't want you to think that." And that played in my mind a lot. God doesn't want me to think, but I was given a brain that thinks. I from a very young age, I understood that I have the capacity to think and ask these questions, but it's just temptation. I thought, why would God tempt me to have these thoughts that I can never answer? And that just like, for me, that's like now a representation of society. Why would I have all these thoughts of feeling like, no, this is wrong, this is confusing, but everything society is given like a very painful grin saying, yes, yes, this is right, but I know it isn't. And so that my concept of God is to someone to fear and not to ask questions.
For me, I had a very interesting relationship with God because my understanding of God was through a Christian lens. So I thought God to be a very unpleasant entity, and I had a hard time accepting the God I was pitched to as a kid. And I remember when I was in community college, and I was being questioned by this Muslim woman, and she was even talking about how the Christian Bible depicts God as such an evil person, and it made me. I kind of something clicked in my mind where I was like, there's no way that this could be God. Like, this is not God.
So even as a kid, I would do something bad, and then I would like talk to God about forgiveness because I didn't want to go to hell. And then I would have dreams as a kid, like going to hell. Like I was so scared of God that I would have nightmares of me doing something bad in my dream, and then dying, and then going to hell, and then seeing a bunch of bad kids in hell. I also had a dream once where I went to hell, and Michael Jackson was in a cell. So just like Christianity warped my mind, fucked up my mind a lot as a kid, as a youth. So yeah, answer this
Yeah,
one
yeah. I'm kind of
question.
along like I remember having a mental breakdown when I was 18 and just repeating over and over it. I'm going to hell. I'm going to hell, and it's just like just a small glimpse of like the damage that this religion, this concept of God, does to the black mind. Because no person should be in that state ever.
Wow, that just actually sparked a memory for me. When I had at 20, 23, 24, I had a mental health breakdown. One of the things I remember shouting is to fear God
Yeah.
repeatedly. And now having that conversation about that's the first thing that I was educated on. It was like the first thing to break as my mental was not coping with the environment. Interesting.
Yeah.
Geez, you know what just reminded me of? When I was in middle school, I was in the 7th grade. I started uh, designing my own clothes, and I had this gray sweater that I had, and on the side of it, I had wrote "fuck God" on it. Yeah. And I would wear this sweater to school every day. Mom never saw it. Teachers saw it, didn't care. But yeah, I was just like, I really, really disliked this whole figure. So I wasn't trying to be ruled by any. First of all, for me, I didn't like the concept of my life being controlled by someone or something that I couldn't see. Um, and I just didn't like how I was forced to go to church, and I would see so many people around me who are just suffering, and yet they pray, and their God wasn't helping them. Well, I perceived that it, as their God wasn't helping them because they're not happy. But
Yeah, I remember the feeling of always having something punitive hanging over my head. I was made to go to church. There was Madeira was on our block. My parents, they were politicians. They weren't so much church going people, even though they came up religious. But it's just all around you. At home, punitive threats. At church, punitive threats. Just dark cloud. At school, punitive. So my concept of God was this punitive, punishing, and like you mentioned, Mary, burning, or Swab mentioned, burning in hell. What kind of? And then on the flip side, they talk about how much God loves you. God is love. Really? So that loving God, if I make a mistake and don't meet up to their expectations, I have to burn eternally. So like you all, I never. I was raised in church. I even was, slated to be a preacher. Now, I've read the entire Bible probably twice, and I never bought into it. I never totally, simply because it just didn't make. If I'm going to go for something, if I'm going to go all in and actually preach about it and talk about it and be behind it, it has to make sense. It can't sound like a fairy tale. It's like some virgin birth, and then You know, all of these things that have never happened again. You know, and all of these miracles, and I'm supposed to believe. Give me something factual and scientific that makes sense. And it's just always
Yeah.
been that's as a child, you know, I just always doubted, never believed. I just never believed. I don't it's not necessary to believe in anything really, because I can look up in the sky and look at the ocean and look at nature and see God. And so if they can convince you to believe in anything, any religion is trying to convince you to believe in something, that means that you know the word lie is at the heart of the word belief. I don't have to believe, that the weather changes and the clouds and the stars in the sky. I can see it. I know there's God. That's God to me. Eternity. There's a perfect system in nature that's put in place. The microbes in the soil, how they work to make the foliage grow, and then the plants, and then the animals feed on the plants, and then the whole cycle of life is so much far beyond us. So they had to conquer that, subdue that. Even the Bible says conquer the earth or something like that, or take dominion over the earth. Conquer nature. They're opposed and anti, and you're opposed to nature. Um, I'm going on and on, huh? I'm going on too much. Um, and so in order for them to, and you got to give them credit, to establish dominion and superiority over everyone else, they had to establish themselves as God. And they learned it from the Africans who are God, who are the gods. So we had to totally suppress the true gods and make ourselves the gods. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, you said one thing that really reminded me of another thought I would have a lot as a child. I remember having these thoughts like I would just be like in middle school. I had no friends. I hung out by myself. Um, I'll just be thinking, and I'll be thinking like, why would my human life dictate the life that's supposed to be forever? So I do something bad and then I'm in hell forever. It just didn't make sense. That's when I made that sweater. F God, because I just didn't think it was fair that my afterlife was dictated by my miserable at the time um like life. So yeah, I agree with everything you've been saying.
Look, torture you, enslave you, steal your land, rape your women, enslave your children, rape them, kill them, and then hand you a book that says you got to forgive me for doing all that. If you want to be happy. I mean, there's a hell of a paradox. Although forgiveness of a person is not for the person that you're forgiving, it's for yourself. I understand the healing of forgiveness. It's required for me. Even Martin Luther King Sr. My father, I have our newspaper article on my wall with my father and Daddy King, Dr. Martin Luther King Sr. And this was after Dr. King's wife. And this is something I probably told you about, Trey. You probably know about this, but you don't. It's like knowledge. It's information that everybody should know. That a
Yeah.
deranged man walked into Dr. Martin Luther King's church and murdered his mother, Daddy King's wife. And after that, he went on a preaching forgiveness. How if you don't forgive, it can cause cancer. That's what causes cancer, the resentment that you let fester inside of you. So he said he wasn't going to bring flowers and candy and say, I forgive you to the people that did that to his wife. But if he were to harbor hatred and resentment, then it's damaging to one's own soul and one's own health. So how do we maintain our serenity and our peace in our soul? Not so much without forgiving. I'm not saying forgive or forget, but how do we rise above the atrocities that have been committed against us for 1,000 years? I want to say since slavery, but even before that, without forgiving. And that's the part of the Bible that it's like human life to thrive and to live, it requires sacrifice and forgiveness. But see, Dr. Wilson pointed out crystal clear that Christianity was created for those white folks. that's for them. Those are those albinos in the Garden of Eden, which opened my mind up to a whole nother perception.
Yeah.
That white, it's really simple. You know, the African Eastern worldview is what I do to you, I do to me. That which I have done unto you, I saw this written somewhere. That which I have done unto you, I've also done unto myself. That's where they bastardized the golden rule from. The golden rule is not do unto others as you would have them do unto you. They twisted it. The real golden rule, I found it. I was like, wow, that, because it's not, man doesn't make law. Only God can make laws. Nature makes laws, man makes rules. So listen to this. That which I have done unto you, I have also done unto myself. That's a law. He's just giving you 2 + 2 is 4. He's just telling you, if you do this to me, I'm doing it to my, you know what I mean? I'm telling you a fact. Where do unto others as you would have them do unto you is, first of all, not a law. It's not a fact. It's a mere suggestion. It's a mere, idea or just a suggestion. And if you really break it down, it's justifying harm to others. Because you're talking about a people who hate themselves, who despise their skin color. They have all this self-hatred and self-loathing going on. And they want, they really, I don't know if you've ever known anyone that it's simply put, it's a masochistic mentality. Do unto others. So I want somebody to kill me. I want somebody to hurt me because I feel suicidal. I feel horrible about myself. And so that can be twisted. That golden rule really can be twisted. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, as you just said it there itself, you can sense the difference in one will, I feel like, will prevent somebody from actions, and the other one, if emotionally charged, you feel I'm righteous to do this because I will do this to someone. One has like a righteous energy and the other has more of a humbling energy. But yeah, I would like to read from, it's just on the second page of the introduction, just to round us off, into the chapter 13. For me, in summary, before I read, the summary for me was that I need to study etymology on a deeper level. I need to, I feel like people, all of us in general need to study etymology on a deeper level, but I want to do it. So we, like how we're using the term God, and it's, Dr. Francis Welsing mentions it's a mirror reflection for the word dog, which is the Europeans' best friend, white supremacy, a white man's best friend. And also, and the first time I had heard the term God, and then somebody said dog is God backwards, what it did to me as a younger child, it took away the power that I felt God should have, if that made sense. Because I was like, why is it even three letters in a sense? But now growing up and tapping into spirituality, I see it's more than just like a word, because a simple word like Om or Ah can represent God if you are igniting it with energy. But for me, so I studying etymology will be important. I feel like this chapter has let me know it's important for my mentality, so I can empower my, like, compute the right words into my brain. And I don't want to use the word God when I'm referencing the creator. Intention is everything, but I just want to get rid of it now because of this dog terminology. But I'm going to read this part that I thought was important. As a practicing general and child psychiatrist, my definition of mental health is as follows: patterns of logic, thought, and speech, action, and emotional response in all areas of people activity that stimulate, reflect self and group respect, and respect for harmony in the universe. The critical question that arises now is, what does the concept and color of God have to do with Black self and group respect for harmony in the universe? The oppression of Black and other non-white people means that there is no non-white self-determination. It also means, most fundamentally, that there can be no true and functional Black self-respect. More specifically, this means that the existing levels of non-white functional self-respect, as manifested in all areas of people activity, are extremely low. Those low levels of functional self-respect imply the self-image and self-concept of a more negative than positive. Likewise, the impact of non-white individual and collective behavior in and on the total environment is more negative than positive. That was profound for me because it had me thinking about what what rises in society, what we see more of when it comes to the Black community or the Black cultural capital, and its derogatory rap that promote drugs, violence against each other. Those are the people who are fueled or given money to further in the industry, so they're in the mainstream public eye. And then you think about who controls the media and why they would encourage that narrative, and it all just ties in together. So, what was your thoughts on those two paragraphs? Open question.
Hi, this is Ashley. Can you guys hear me? Yeah? Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, sorry. Yeah, I thought that that paragraph that you were reading was really good, especially in terms of like self-determination. I think that I mean, there's a lot of non-white people who have fought for self-determination, but I don't even know if we really know what that means. Like, what do you guys think that means? Like, the self-determination of non-white people?
Yeah, I did think a lot about the self-determination of non-white people, and zeal, motivation, and we don't have a lot of it. Where it's, that's to generalize, but those we are all victims of racism, white supremacy, but those who are complacent within the system, I feel like our determination is very much determined. It's very much a basis of what the social values are in society. And usually the social values in society, although we shape the culture, the social values are always going to be for white supremacy and defend that. So I feel like non-white self-determination comes from either complete rejection of white supremacy or your so the determination is not for me associated with a healthy conditioning. So it will stop if when okay, for an example, pleasure-based experiences is very high in white supremacy culture and society. And if that's something that we adopt into our own determination, the second something is tough, we won't be determined. So that's where we lack. So we lack lots of principles that will keep us self-determined within the Black community. That's how I think.
That was an excellent analysis. This last sentence on this page, 164, the process of oppression is to mold the victims of oppression into functional inferiors. This is so deep. Oh my God. I can almost cry, you know. I'm getting emotional right now. What this brought to mind was what I do, what I am, what my purpose is, and what I live for, which is to feed my people. I think, and it's so deep, you know, they attack us through our diet. And self-determination. And let me put it in this way, by my idea of what a school should look like. It should look like a garden with food growing. And I mean, I know that sounds basic and fundamental, but somebody said, I'm quoting, someone said, a nation, what determines a nation's ability, or what determines a nation's future is their ability to feed themselves. And that's at the basic premise. That's at the basic foundation. So we also have to feed ourselves. We also have to educate ourselves. We also have to, but it starts with like getting together collectively and feeding ourselves. First and foremost, you know, because if we're dependent on another person, another power, another entity for our food, firstly, we're dependent. You're going to be dependent, and you can claim to be self-determined and independent in other areas, and you may think you're independent, but if you're dependent on me for your food, then you're not. I determine, not you, what you get to do.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Like, if we don't even have the tools to reproduce ourselves, we produce Black people independently of like a white infrastructure, can we even like talk about self-determination? And that's why I'm wondering, like, how do we even do that? How do we begin those steps of like, is it like getting a piece of land and turning it into like a community garden? Like, I don't know. I'm just wondering, like, what are the tangible steps to like self-determination?
When I think about that, for me, it determines the areas in which we need to be determined in, because just like we talked about, going back into the system, like looking at what's happened here, like 2 of our members have started work because they need the security. And it's like, if it's for me, I always go back to it's not Maslow's, I'm sure that it was defined further before him, but from what we was taught, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if the bases are not fulfilled, the self-determination can only come from wanting to survive in whatever your brain computer thinks is surviving. And if making ends meet and eating is your definition of surviving, then that is where there will be self-determinant. So I feel like we need lots of first of all, people need to have the decondition or impact, have the understanding that there's a better source, there's a better way of living and a better way of life if we come together and end white supremacy. And then the self-determination will hopefully kick in that sense. Or they'll see the long-term benefits of staying on course or working hard or being determined as a Black community. I don't know if I've answered the question, how you...
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I wonder, like, there's Black people of means, right? And I'm like, can we like consolidate like it's not like all Black people are in the same strata, right? There are some who have land. Do you think that they're so like deep in white supremacy, or do you think we could set up some sort of infrastructure where, those people are providing access to like land where we can grow our own food and be independent and have our own like schools and stuff? Because I feel like that's the first step. I know I'm going off topic from the book, I'm sorry, but when you brought it up, I was just thinking about that. Like, I feel like those have to be the first steps. And it's not like there aren't Black people who don't have capital. It's more about if they consider if they consider us to be genocided, and in need of like, yeah, that makes sense.
I think it's totally on topic. You got Oprah Winfrey, Michael Jordan. Just they do all these individual things. Oprah, I don't know, she does a lot of stuff. She opened a school in South Africa. Michael Jordan, I just saw on the news, financed a clinic somewhere. Let's just take the 10 top Black earners in the country. Even 20. I mean, there's a lot of them. This white supremacy is so powerful, man, that those high-powered people, to my knowledge, have not gotten together and bought a farm and said, this is for Black people, or bought a large parcel of land and said, this is for us. I mean, Jay-Z and Beyonce and Diddy, and I mean, they make so much money. Some of these ball players, not compared to the owners that are paying them. I get that. We look at these sports figures and think how many millions of dollars, but think about the person that's paying them. They're paying the whole team. But collectively, why is it that they haven't gotten together and establish something for us?
Hadn't the Ghanaian government or council had arranged or organized a program where African Americans could go back in and get a piece of land, I believe, just like I believe it was called the year of return.
Yeah,
I don't know if you have to prove. Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just said
no. Please give more info.
I remember this. I think it was either this year or last year that it was the year of return for Black Americans to go back to Ghana. But I don't know anything about I don't know if they were actually given like tangible things. I just know that it was like promoted, but that might not be what you're talking about, is it?
I think it is, and there was land was supposed to be offered citizenship.
I heard about that.
About citizenship. I didn't know about land. That's interesting.
Maybe
Yeah.
I'm wrong about the land, but citizenship most definitely. Which, yeah, we could definitely buy our own land, create a community. But the thing is that we want to do it on in the western areas where we've grown up or built up history or contributed to. And the closest that was coming into my mind that could resonate with what you was talking about was what Dr. Sebi had done. I believe he created they created something like an ashram where it's like a self-sustaining village with him and his family, and they do healing classes. I think it's in Mexico.
Honduras.
Honduras. Okay. Well, is that a community that people could go into, and since he was murdered or killed, has that continued? um, or the other method, going off the grid? There's people who are like, there's a space of land that the government can't control or something like that, and people live there and have established communities there, or not community, just their own living, communal living amongst whomever they've moved out there with.
You just made me think about like the ultimate solution for us here in the US is to unite with the indigenous people, the Native Americans.
Yeah. Have you guys heard about the Seminoles in Florida? Someone escaped enslaved people, enslaved Africans left. They would go to the swamps in like Florida, Louisiana, and there was a group of Native Americans called the Seminoles. And there's a lot of Black Seminoles because they like, you know, intermarried and stuff, and they would provide like protection and bring the freed slaves into their community so that they could fight the white people, the settlers who were encroaching on their land. And because they knew the swamps so well, they knew how to navigate it and fight. I've been reading this book, Settlers, and it talks a lot about how America in itself is so corrupting that it may not even be a place that Black people or non-white people in general should be at all. And I've been thinking about that too, like what happens if we just collectively leave because we provide so much cheap and or free labor in terms of prison labor, etc. Like if we did a mass exodus. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but I don't know, just trying to think of a lot of different things. Yeah, solution.
Yeah, we you know, I'm writing about that in my book about the swamps, the maroon societies in the swamps of Florida, Louisiana, and the Carolinas. And not just physically working together, because they've been able to divide us in that way too. Because after the war, Civil War, instead of getting together and working together with the indigenous people fighting against the enemy, we helped the enemy fight the Indians. So now they have this chip on their shoulder towards us. We're all divided. And to get the status that we need, first of all, I think we should first of all get all ADOSs, and we all should know what that stands for: American Descendants of Slaves. Get on that page, get on that movement. That's the certification that's going to get us some of the reparations. We're pushing for 20 years tax exempt status, like or certain tax exemptions for natives. We're pushing for land rights, and for us to really succeed is to join with the indigenous peoples, because that's the big lie, that's the best kept secret, is that the indigenous peoples of the Americas are like copper colored, Asiatic looking with long black hair. And that's just not the truth. The truth is those black people were all along the Mexican Gulf prior to the migration of the Asians through the Bering Straits. But when those Asians migrated here through Russia and Alaska, look at the Eskimos. They're brown skinned, they're my complexion. Um, when the further south they came, the darker they got. They have evidence of Africans in the Hopi Mountains in Nevada, in the Grand Canyon, the Mississippi River. There's evidence of Black people, African people. So we're actually indigenous to this land as well. So I think one big step for self-determination, um, and self-respect. I like how she pointed that out. You can't have true functional Black self-respect. Can't have it. So this is some kind of false confidence we're running around here with, because we're asleep. We don't realize that we have no self-determination.
Yeah, it's almost insidious when you think about it, because just from our conversations that we've had today, quite reliving some of like the memories and thoughts is just giving more aha moments. And that moment that I understood that dog and God were like the same letters but backwards, and I had diminished the reverence and from my understanding of what I thought God was, that was almost diminishing my respect for what keeps me going or what makes me feel proud in a sense. And I feel like those little inserts there, the monkey syndrome, the monkey, all the little things that triggers that we have dealt with, I feel like they all chip away at the respect in the self, and it takes a lot of determination in ourselves to combat those in general. So if you're not even thinking on that level and you're taking in these triggers, you're naturally not going to have respect for yourself by taking in the environment around you.
Okay, wake up, you guys.
Yeah, was there any parts of the chapter, that any kind of parts that anybody wants to read out from that called out to them?
I just want to piggyback one last thing about Mary, what you were saying about God.
Yeah.
That it's actually a word. It's a Germanic word that was used by the pagans.
Yeah. I believe the full word is Godin. It's Viking folklore. Is where the word, Godin, or something like that. That's the full.
Yeah, the barbarian. It's a barbarian god.
Exactly.
Viking god. And that's what everybody's going around referring to the creator as.
And not only that, I look at the days of the week that we have, the Gregorian calendar that we take on board, all the things that we accept as our everyday knowledge. Monday is fine because it's in reference to Moon Day. Tuesday, I can't remember in particular, but I do remember like Friday is in reverence to the folk European mythology goddess Frigg. That's where we get Friday from. Thursday is Thor. Saturday is Saturn, and Sunday is the sun. So it's in reference to astrology, but mainly it's also incorporated with their folklores, and it's our everyday secular knowledge. But we didn't get the choice of whether or not we wanted to assimilate that into our existence. And I feel that that's why I was saying etymology, learning what words are and truly defining it is very important. Very, very important. What I loved about this chapter as well is her description of them taking away from the Black Madonna and the Black Madonna and flipping it for to be Mary and Jesus and a white Jesus Christ, and it makes you. What I did is I went back to the original source, and it's Kemetic knowledge of Set and Heru, and it completely changes the story. But the elements that we hold on to, like apparently like I'm okay. Before I keep trailing off, but the elements that we hold on to, the reason why we still adopt it is because we have certain familiar sounds or something, and then that would resonate, and we're forced to like take in the rest, or the other must be true because this part resonates, but it's only because it's been watered and copied down from the original text, which at some point we do resonate with. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, which is why the Jesus, for me, which is why the Jesus Christ story can fall into any form of white production that's made. Superman, any white savior complex. They even and some imagery they flash the symbol of the hands being out, and that the Christ symbolism of Jesus, because when it's watered down and circularized in a way that it's not very hard for them to fit it into any storyline narrative that they create. So they're constantly reiterating these imageries in the things that we're into, like Marvel films. So it's very intricate.
That was deep.
Yeah, that's deep. Like the iconography of Jesus as a white person is so ingrained in all of our media. It's really, really oh, sorry. I wanted to say two things. I wanted to read a section of the book, but also like I went to a black vegan restaurant yesterday, and there was a portrait of Jesus and Mary, but they were like, it was the same portrait, but their skins were like darker, not even like extensively darker, but like darker. And I was like, what is the benefit of this? Like, what does this mean? You know, like you turned a story, like it reminds me of how like they're making like Disney characters like black now. It's like you can't put like a black face on something that is like oppressive, and then it's like somehow like suddenly like liberating, I think. Yeah, but anyway, what I wanted to read from 169. She says, indeed, the circumference of my quote unquote liberation movement circle could be so wide that it really appears to me that I am moving in a straight line of progress. But moving in a circle, no matter how big the circle is, tantamount to standing absolutely still, marking time, which I thought was really, really like just accurate. And then later on, she goes to say, if the concept of God is removed from my brain computer, upon whom or what am I to lean, especially if I am feeling oppressed, depressed, and overwhelmed? If there is nothing or no one to provide support, then I believe that I will collapse and disintegrate. And I think that there's like so many people that is would actually happen, like their whole being, essence, history would really disintegrate if they like left, or if the idea of, and concept of God and the white supremacist God left their being. I think it's really incumbent on us to like provide that God in terms of like justice and community, like not an oppressive patriarchal God, but like, you know, a purposeful like idea of justice as like your goal. You know, I don't know if I make sense, but
Absolute sense. Absolute sense. That was profound. I'm really personalizing this because my brother, we were raised Baptist. My brother married a Catholic lady, and he's very religious. He's 3 years older than me. We're close. He's down in LA, and he was trying to get his wife to get into the Baptist church, but her whole family are the Catholics, black Catholics on his holy name, on Jefferson, right in the hood, you know. This black Catholic church is so sad. Oh God, it's so sad. And he got so into it, so involved, and now he's wearing a robe. I mean, I went to a ceremony. They have the most fabulous cathedral in downtown LA. It's like the most beautiful Catholic cathedral ever built in the history of cathedrals in this country. It just looks like Disneyland. And right outside this place, it's like the largest skid road in the country. You know where I'm talking about, right? And it's heartbreaking to see this, you know. If his I always say things to shatter his illusion. I'm always shooting things his way to show him how misguided and misdirected and it just insane it is. And it's like this disassociation. He just totally blocks it. He can't hear it. And he would be crushed. He and his wife's world would collapse and disintegrate. And so they hold on to it, they cling to it. And like sometimes my street mentality, my hustler mentality tells me to take this knowledge and to start preaching and to become a preacher. Because there are people that no matter how much truth you give them, what you tell them, they will never give up their Christianity. I mean, you just don't even bother. It's a way. Man, I could get five. I could get maybe, I would say 2,000 or 3,000 members. That's enough for a yacht.
Wow. Yeah. That's very interesting. Actually, I saw a video. I think you should do. I think you should move with your passion. Everything comes in phases and times, and if you feel the inkling, prepare yourself. But for me, I remember seeing about 2 weeks ago, a pastor was reiterating that he had the image of Jesus Christ, like blue-eyed. I think we sent it in the group, and he was like, "This is not Jesus." And if you watch the full video, he proceeds to hit the picture several times, like quite aggressively. And at first I found it funny, and then I thought to myself, in terms of imagery, it's really important what he's doing there. He's hitting and whacking. He didn't dare hit the image of the cross. And I sensed that he too thought that would have been too much for the church congregation. But when he was hitting the image of the white Jesus Christ, saying, "This is not Jesus Christ. This is not your God. This is not Jesus." The hitting of it is, it's like it goes along with what they are hearing, the cognitive dissonance that they're experiencing and trying to like break themselves from. Like they're physically seeing that being hit is almost like something that they hang on their wall or frame. The fact that somebody is basically given it, I think it was just more of a wake up call to physically see. I know it's aggression, but it was just to physically see him disrespect the image was, I think that was even more powerful than what he was actually saying. I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, Ben, I also have a brother who's incredibly religious, like incredibly religious. Him and his wife are super, super religious, which is really interesting because his wife is Korean and like we're from Ghana. So it's like two places that were I mean, I wouldn't say Korea was necessarily like colonized. It's a kind of neo-colonialism. And there was a lot of missionaries that went to Korea in the 50s. And so Korea is like very, very Christian now. Ghana, of course, is very Christian because it was colonized by the English. And so I almost see it as like, I feel really like you can just see the like history exists in people, you know, and like their relationship is like the history of these countries and them coming together as these like super religious people is kind of like that trauma onto these countries put together. It's really intense, like the hold that religion has on them. And it's also interesting because like there's a black church. Like I used to go to a black church on like Crenshaw and 20th, which is like a pretty like economically like disadvantaged, I guess, neighborhood. And it was like this huge mega church that had like I think seating for almost 10,000 people. And you'll just see all the black people in like their Sunday's best, and they're very like the middle class type of black people. And you'll see like all of these, you know, homeless people or the black people that society has like thrown away, and you will see them side by side, and it's like these two groups of blackness, and you'll just see the amount of contempt that the middle class black people have for them, which is crazy to think that you're going into a church, you know, and so it's just really interesting. Like I don't understand how people can mentally justify so much. And as a kid, like when I would go into that church, I couldn't justify it and I didn't understand it. Yeah.
Mm. The hypocrisy is just incredible. To have I think these churches are going to be turned into, eventually going to be turned into places to grow food. That's what I do. That's why I always talk about them. I'm an urban farmer. My thing is feeding ourselves. And a lot of these campuses, a lot of these useless higher institutions of so-called higher learning, really higher burning, they're going to have to be converted into food growing institutions.
Learn agriculture.
Yeah, agribusiness. Yeah.
What's very interesting, the repurposing of buildings in the UK have, the area that I live in, Southeast London, there's a lot of gentrification happening around here. It's been happening over the course of 10 years. Maybe 8 years ago when I was at college, going into university, I remember doing a project called the Regeneration Program, and they were getting us to be optimal about the projects that were going to be done into our community. Looking into it now, it was preparation for gentrification. All the things that the benefits are not experienced by the Black community over here. We're being dispersed. Rent is at an all-time high, and what I'm seeing more and more in terms of the populace moving in is white people moving into refurbished or old institutes being reused. And just thinking about the fact that as a community, something is being shut down or reused. There are groups that focus on allowing people in the community to know that changes are happening around them. But a lot of the Southeast London, especially if you're working class, you're working. You don't have time to figure out the things that's going on around you. You work a lot, 12-hour shifts on a basis. So you come home to sleep and then prepare for the next day. And what I'm seeing the changes that are happening around us, the reusing of the institutes is for housing, more gentrified style housing, more converted lofts, converted school. There's converted a school building for renting spaces, and that's only gentrification can do that. Imagine the use of an institution not being used by the community when the community is failing in so many other ways. We hardly have allotments around here. There's like one now that's been established thanks to the new comers in the area. But yeah, that was really significant for me, seeing the changes of closed down schools being changed into places of rent as opposed to places to improve the community. And of course, who can afford these? Not the people in this environment, in this area.
I have to head out. I have to go for a speech happening. But I'll see you guys. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Okay, Ashley, have a blessed day.
Bye.
See you soon.
Bye, Mary. Bye, Ben.
Okay, bye.
Bye, Swa. Hello. Okay, hello, Ben.
Yeah, I'm still here. It's me.
Yes.
And you. Yes.
Yes.
Got a headache.
Yeah, I'm sure he's falling asleep now. He had been complaining about the headache earlier.
You want to go ahead and wrap it up?
Um, okay. Yeah. So for me, predominantly, this in chapter 13, what stuck out for me the most is the fact that we need to replace these images, and the way that I believe we can replace these images of white God is by finding out our own Kemetic history, finding out the sources of where these, in which the building blocks in which these books have been built to support the white white supremacist mindset into just go back and fetch Sankofa, go back and learn the Kemetic God, understand the principles in which stop shying away from now I understand that if society generally says something is evil, it's something I should look into, because it's just a mask of a way to cover things up. The fact that they call embracing Egyptian religion as stupid, or embracing Aboriginal religions as stupid or backwards, or something of the devil, now that we understand that it's all a ploy to slow us down. The most important thing is to search and reaffirm that into our minds, so we can now live by those principles and have the self-confidence and have that imagery in our head as the first images we see, rather than what we constantly consume.
Agree. I think this is the chapter that actually possibly maybe got Swat to start this book club. If he was reading, when he got to this particular chapter, he said, oh yeah. I think this is what, countering white racism and white supremacy is predicated on.
Yeah, from I won't speak for him, but from what I know, it was actually the Delectable Negro, and the atrocities in there. He was just like, no, something needs to be done.
We
need to come together. The missionaries, the true missionaries, need to come together.
Bring the truth out.
Mm-hmm. So Ben, I'll ask for chapter 13. What are your main highlights of this chapter?
Well, I was just I probably kind of mentioned it already, the concept and the color of God and Black mental health. Mm-hmm. We talked a lot about God and the concept, and why is because they know who God is. They know that God is you. In particular, I mean, literally, physically. And it crystallized for me the whole what word am I not conspiracy, the whole conspiracy to create this white God was, to oppress and control Black people. Whereas I didn't really see it as a totally weaponized concept from the gate, from the very beginning. It's actually a weapon of war. Christianity is actually a weapon of war.
Most definitely.
And this is the last thing I just wanted to say out loud is that we have to acknowledge as a people our insanity. And that's the scary part. That's the hard part. That's the challenge. To not deconstruct this, we're living, and insanity being self-destruction. Mm. So we get to be the same ones.
What is that saying? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over again and thinking it'll make a difference.
Expecting different results.
Yeah.
And that's the circular thought.
Yep. Yeah. Most definitely. For me, what I would like to finish with, because I'd highlighted at the beginning my main key points, but what I think was an important statement, and I'll explain why it's important after I read it. Since melanin is a superior absorber of all energy, so this is on page 171.
Okay, thanks.
Towards the end, yeah. So since melanin is a superior absorber of all energy, it is essential to establish this understanding of God and all energy. The fact that the albinos, whites, lack melanin may also help to explain why they have quite a different concept or understanding of God, all energy, of all spirit, why they conceive, why they why they conceive of a trinity, and why, in the view of many non-white peoples, they lack spirituality and the capacity to tune into and thereby establish harmony and justice in the universe. Further, because they lack the melanin sensory system, intuit they cannot intuit that all is one. Yeah, so for me, this is like, stop being angry at white people. Understand that they are in this game for their own genetic survival. Can we be mad at that? Yes, as it's inflicting pain onto me. But what I don't want to waste any more time doing is trying to reason with somebody who genetically doesn't have the capacity, based on the information that we have, genetically doesn't have the capacity to feel to the extent or have that level of compassion and capacity to not do wrong, apparently. But yeah, based off this, so my ideology is to stop wasting time in that area and turn that inward focus, and not be afraid. By stop wasting time, I mean no longer explaining my voodoo is not evil, no longer explaining being black doesn't mean, being pro-black doesn't mean being anti-white. No longer explaining that, because that is also going around in circles to me. This statement tells me I have everything I need to trust it in and have confidence in what I am searching and trying to regain for myself now from this point and where I am. And I do accept that I was living in an insane way and made do for the sake of coexisting, in acknowledging that this is an insane way to live, I'm slowly will and look for the determining factors that will get me on the right path of freedom.
Wow.
Mm.
Enough said. That was very rich and insightful. I thank you for that because you helped me to deal with this. Stop arguing. Stop trying to convince and stop.
Dr. Francis Cress Welsing did that, did that for us.
Yeah. Stop. In other words, don't feel that resentment that I talked about that Daddy King was talking about. Don't be angry. Don't be hateful towards them. Don't hate. That's not the
Yeah.
solution. Is to hate. The solution is to know and to keep it simple. Every time I go out in the sun and I look at these white folks, like I said before, they have to go like this.
Yep.
God's son that gives everything life. How would you feel if you couldn't? We can't even fathom how they feel.
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, such a deep.
The way that I will take it in, like an example is like going to a party, like for instance, being in the Zoom meeting and having a headache. You can't take in information. You can't take it. You can't even give enough of what you could possibly give if you didn't have that headache. And for them, the sun interfering with the genetic, the sun interfering with their mortality will narrow your thinking. Compassion will be harder when we're literally stepping to the sun and we are grateful. It's not a reason to enslave people. It's not to enslave people. I would never see it as a form of justification. I could just say that it's enough information for me to know that I don't need to put energy towards hating or trying to convince you. If you want to be convinced or you want to be deprogrammed, then perfect. If you don't, that's not my concern right now. Yeah.
All righty.
Yeah. Yeah, but thank you so much for everything that you've actually articulated and sharing your experiences. I feel like today's meeting has been has allowed me to just do a lot of clicking it's definitely the chapters talking about fear, talking about anxiety, these being major things that happen to us as Black people um, in our experiences by default based on the way things are set up. But yeah, it was very, especially the moment where we talked about our first taking or concept of God, and mine being I should fear God and not ask questions, and then having a mental health breakdown at 24, and the first thing I'm screaming at the top of my lungs is we should fear God. Yeah, that it just showed me the mechanisms of the break of our brain computer, and why it is fragile and where we can source this information from, and what it's trying to escape and leave it doesn't want to believe anymore. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's been quite profound actually for me.
Wow.
So I really enjoyed our discussion today.
So, quick question: if I put
Yes.
this reading, this thing you put in the chat on the embarrassed white mother, because I was embarrassed about having a white mother up until a certain age, and then I had to overcome that feeling. Either I'm going to live with this embarrassment, or I'm going to just not be embarrassed anymore. Be proud of who I am and love my mother and stand tall. So I have it over here and I want to click on it, but I don't want to lose the screen. So
Ah,
I'm not
okay.
texting. So
Okay.
click on it. I could probably click on it, bookmark it, and then come back. Is that how you do it?
For me, when I click on, I'm not sure how your Zoom is set up. We're both on computers. When I click on it, it comes up separately from the chat. It doesn't affect the chat. There's even a pop out
Let me
that
see.
you can.
I'm gonna try it. See, I lost you. I see now I can't see you. So that's what I do. I just bookmark it. Cool. That's cool.
Okay.
I just bookmark it and then come back.
Okay. No, but it's a very interesting article. Definitely, the next time we're meeting, let's have a discussion about what you thought about it, because I feel like it's important, uh, as you being mixed race as well, to hear a fellow person's experience and who came into the knowledge of white supremacy, who is advocate on countering it, and how they healed through their experience.
Fantastic. And I'm gonna find a Black wife to
Yeah.
join this group. I've kind of been open-minded, looking around here and everything, looking at speaking Hispanic, that's been my new thing. But I'm trying to get closer to God. I'm trying to get. I
You
need.
said it the best the first time. Do keep doing the right thing and staying in that frequency, and you will attract that frequency that will either help to elevate or match your frequency.
I think that's been the problem. I've been like, I'm on the frequency with you all, with this group, but you don't find that around here. It's hard to find people on that level. Even
It's true.
Moni, Moni's still in that Christian. You know Moni?
Yeah, yeah, Moni, but she tries. She tries really hard. She tries really hard.
We'll get her. I'll work on her. I'm massage. After, if she would have stuck to reading this, she would have been really questioning. Yeah, I don't know if she's read it. And what happens to people that read this and see that it's true? You have enough intellect to know that it's true, but you're deeply in, in, immersed
Yeah,
in this Christianity.
yeah. That's the cognitive dissonance. And I feel like that's why it was important. The pastor who remained a pastor within the Christian church, and from within his church, broke down that that's not Jesus. I think that's like maybe the first step, as opposed to somebody coming from the outside saying what you guys are wrong in Christianity. It starts with the leaders in Christianity breaking down the version of Christianity that we have is not beneficial to us. I think there are churches that exist like that as well.
Oh yeah, they got so-called Afrocentric Christian churches. I got a guy he's like my brother. He has 10,000 members in Texas. We grew up together in the church. Well, you make speeches in front of the church as a kid, the youth department, and you're groomed for that, and they groom you to preach. And he went off back to Texas, and he has over 10,000 members now. But it's like him and Jeremiah Wright of Chicago, Obama's pastor, Black liberation preachers. But it's insanity. You can't preach liberation within the plantation. You got to get off the plantation to even start to be free.
That's true, but you have to come back to the plantation to say, I've seen a better way, follow me this way.
Yeah.
This is the escape route. It's just hard because they're gonna be like, there's no escape routes. You go back to the escape route, it's been re-digged, somebody saw it and covered it. I don't know. We'll find a solution. We're gonna get there most definitely. I wanted to say for next week, Sunday, I believe it is chapters 14 and 15 that we're gonna be reading.
Unless we just go ahead and catch up and merge this. Are we gonna? I guess it's me and you. I guess it's me and you that have to decide.
That's true. Then okay, so they read up to chapter 16, and they're reading 17, 18, and I believe 19. So if we are in chapter basically 14, 15, 16, 17, would you be willing to read 4 or 5 chapters to catch up?
I've already completed 14.
Oh wow, okay, yeah. I have, based on reading back, but I always go back for Sunday sessions to read, to get questions that we can analyze and break down. So
there's something in this last chapter that I have to discuss. I mean, I want to just, so I'm torn. On the one hand, I want to merge with the other group, but on the other hand,
I'm gonna take the time to read it out.
Oh man, I wanted to hear, I wanted to discuss this one thing about the Indians in India. Did you get to that part?
Yes. Ashley had given chapter 14. A rape was it to do the chapter about breaking down rape and its power in symbolism?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. There is a lot to say about chapter 14.
Yeah.
I'm happy for you to share your thoughts, but I would most definitely like to preserve that for our next meeting, so I can go in depth.
So what do? We come back on Sunday to continue with Trey?
Yes, I think that's a good idea, and I also think that the idea that I'd said earlier of having people maybe listening for a taster, and then they can present questions if they want to. I think that they'll benefit from hearing us discuss about the book club.
Yeah.
About our takes on each chapter.
Yeah, that's my vote. We just continue. Continue until we finish.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll definitely get there, and I'm sure. We're reading 14 and 15, but we can go ahead and do 14, 15, and 16, and that way we will catch up with the following group eventually. 14, 15, and 16.
Okay, maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe I'll go ahead and catch up with them and join them, because Swa did invite me to join on Wednesday.
I mean, I am there back and forth as well.
So okay, yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll just show up on Wednesday, irregardless, and catch up to. Yeah. I'll read up to 17, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Or 18.
I believe they're doing chapters 16, 17, and 18.
Okay. That's not a lot.
Yeah.
I can handle that by Wednesday.
Yeah, true.
I have a doctor's appointment Wednesday. I can't come Wednesday. Shoot, my doctor's appointment, I think, it's at 1:30. So it's right at the time of the class.
Wow.
But that's okay. I'll still be here Sunday. And then are you watching movies tomorrow?
We're watching it on Thursday, actually. And we're watching Daughters of the Dust by Julie Dash.
But you guys do that. It's too early here.
On Thursday. Thursday, 8 p.m. is 12. Well, now, Thursday, 8 p.m. for us is 1 p.m. for you over there.
So let me mark my calendar just in case I'm able to make it. Thursday at 1.
1 p.m. Daughters of Dust, Julie Dash. It's a beautiful piece. It inspired you by you.
I think I can do that. So will I get the The link, will you email it to me like last time?
Yes, we're gonna email it to you, but it's gonna be on this hopefully the same invite code, but we will definitely email it to you
So
on
it'll
the
be
day
an
on Thursday.
email. Okay, so I just have to click on the email.
Yeah, the way that we're doing it also is via Eventbrite. We're gonna have an Eventbrite so people can get tickets to come to the movie night. Not to say you need to pay or anything,
It's
but
a
just
free event. I know they
exactly,
have free.
exactly. But doing it that way is because over here in the UK, it's still Black History Month. I think it's a good way to give reverence and make it accessible for people who don't. It's hard to get their email address. We can attract more like-minded people that way through the hashtags of Black History Month, Black Cinema, decoding film and cinema, and yeah. So hopefully that should give some good. Should attract like-minded people to for us.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. All right.
Okay, Ben. All right. Well, you have an amazing rest of your Sunday. It's almost Monday for me here. It's 11:30, so I'm gonna get ready for bed.
Okay. Well, sleep well, and
Thank you.
thank you again.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ben. It's always a pleasure, and I'll see you on Thursday because you have your doctor's appointment on Wednesday.
Okay. Bye.
Okay. Enjoy the rest of the week. Enjoy the week coming.
Okay. Bye.
Take care.